So I want to talk about trust, and in particular, how can you trust someone with a mental illness? So before you start messaging me with an uproar, hear me out, because I'm talking from a place of experiencing this from both sides. Let me spell it out for you. Someone that has a mental illness or a disability or some sort of thing that impacts their brain, by definition, how they're thinking is not normal. And I don't mean abnormal in the sense of them being a freak, but I do mean abnormal in the sense that whatever's going on in their mind is different from that of a quote unquote regular person. Now, I'm speaking to this from a place of having mental illness myself and having issues down that path for the majority of my lifetime. So the reason I bring this up is because the more I talk about this, the more it will become publicly known that I have and do suffer from mental illness. And the more I talk about my experiences, the more people will get a insight into my mind. Now, that will understandably make them judge me. And I don't mean judgment in a necessarily a negative way, but it will make people consider everything I say and do, at least partially through the lens of mental illness, right? So if I say that I'm not feeling well, or if I cancel on an engagement, or if I seem a little bit upset or angry, or I come across as a bit depressed or anxious, if you know that I struggle with mental illness of some sort, it wouldn't be a far jump to go, well, it's most likely that the mental illness is causing Zach to do these things. The problem with all of this is that how can, with that diagnosis and the understanding that it is impacting me, because it does, because if it didn't impact me, I wouldn't be, suffering from the mental illness, right? So I am legitimately impacted by it. Therefore, when people meet me and talk to me and interact with me, how can they trust me as a person? Well, the initial reaction is to go, if you know the definition of the diagnosis and you know something about that diagnosis and you know I have it, then you might start going, okay, well, I expect this from Zach and not these other things, and I will subsequently put my guard up. Now, maybe this is the case. Maybe this is the case when you discover someone has some sort of condition. You're now on edge because you're like, what does this mean about this person? If I say someone's got borderline personality disorder, if I say someone's an addict, if I say someone's got an eating disorder, if I say someone's got schizophrenia, right? If I say someone's got depression or has been suffering from suicidal thoughts, if I say someone's got autism, if I say someone's got Down syndrome, right? Instantly, we start thinking things about that person. We can't help it. That's what people do. And it's not a bad thing in the sense that, we're designed, or we evolved to make snap judgments of our environment, of the people around us, just to keep us safe. Because, if we can make a snap judgment, we know where we're at socially, physically, all of that sort of stuff. But now that we're in this case, how does that impact us, and how does that impact someone like myself who does suffer from mental illness in terms of making impressions and all that sort of stuff? And conversely, when I'm told that someone has a mental illness, or when I find out that they've got some sort of condition or past or history, what does that do for me? And is there a way to combat those thoughts that come up, the cliches, the stereotypes, the stigma? Because one of the main drives that I've been going for here is stigma reduction. And the way that I sort of have been approaching it thus far is to say, hey, if you suffer from something, let's share your story. I've got the Share Your Story project. I'll link it below, where people can share what their experience with mental illness, trauma, and that sort of stuff has been. The idea being that if you share your story, you are able to show the reality and sort of break through that sort of stigma or stereotyped view. However, unless you take the time to read and investigate and talk to and really get an in-depth understanding of people with different conditions, you're not going to be able to break the stigma completely. So then I'm like, okay, how can I get a rule that I can live by myself, i.e. to project the the person that I am, and also to see the people that I'm talking to for more than just their condition. And, so what I've sort of realized is I need to judge people purely based on how they're treating me, purely based on their actions. What they think might be any range of things. I have no way of knowing that. Let's say you tell me you're thinking something. I don't know that that's the truth. You might not know what you're properly thinking, right? You might be a bit clouded in that regard. But what I do know are the actions that you're presenting me, right? So I've met people with borderline personality disorder that have treated me and the people around them terribly. Just not pleasant to be around, untrustworthy, and it sort of solidified a lot of those cliches. But conversely, I've met people that were the complete opposite and were very nice, very respectful, very caring, and were sort of managing things. And the same's true for a plethora of conditions. People with depression that are in bed letting their life just fall apart, not intentionally, but that's just what's happening. Whereas other people are every day getting up, going to work, and actively fighting it to every part in the spectrum in between. People that have had a similar past to mine with a traumatic childhood have gone down the self-harm, addiction, abusiveness, continuing that cycle with, their kids or their family members or other people in their lives, and other people going the complete opposite direction, and once again, every spectrum in between. So what I've realized is that I should judge people based on their actions, based on what they're doing, what they're saying, what I can observe their behavior being. Their diagnoses is relevant, but it's also very much not. What am I seeing from this person right now? What am I getting in? What have they done to me? What have they done with me? What things of their actions do I take as a good or a bad thing? And do I like those actions? And based on their actions, I will judge that person and then keep them more or less in my life. Same thing's true for people with addictions. My father was an addict and it made his life go down a terrible path. But I've met other people that you would argue are addicted to certain substances, but it hasn't ruined the character or the person that they are. They're there, they're doing their stuff, they're treating people, including myself and the people around them, well, but they just happen to be inebriated while doing it, right? I've said it before, but it's worth mentioning again. If someone's always angry when they're drunk, right? If someone's an aggressive drunk and they get drunk once in a blue moon, you might want to forgive them, maybe, your call, obviously, for that instance, because they got drunk, they got aggressive, but they don't get drunk often. Right? Maybe you forgive them, maybe you don't. No judgment there, that's not the point. But let's say they get drunk 3 times a week, and you know that it's the alcohol that makes them aggressive. But if they're getting drunk 3 times a week, or 4 times, or however many times a week, that's becoming part of their personality. They're always getting drunk, and when they're drunk, they're always being abusive. That to me suggests that they're an abusive person, right? It might be the alcohol or whatever drug causing it, but ultimately they're taking that drug continually and their actions are causing them to be abusive to you. So like I said, I haven't fully thought through this whole process, but I'm trying to work on judging people based on their actions alone. What I am seeing them doing, what I'm seeing them saying. Does that make sense? That's really what I'm trying to get across here. It's very easy to fall into the cliches, the stereotypes, the stigmas, and all of that sort of stuff based on ill-informed information. But you can judge someone based on what they are doing with you, what they're doing with other people, what you observe yourself. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this, because I'm very curious to sort of investigate down this path further as a way to actively reduce stigma, first by sharing our own stories and then by judging people based on what you see them doing. Let me know.